The Denver Broncos and Kansas City Chiefs face off in the biggest game of the week across the National Football League with big-time AFC West implications. We'll break it all down here on Crossover Thursday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Wild AFC West heats up on Sunday here in Week 11 as the Denver Broncos host the Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome to Crossover Thursday here in the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And that's all thanks to all of you everydayers out there in Broncos country, in Chiefs kingdom. Thanks for making us your first listen, however you choose to do so. I'm Cody Roark, host of Locked On Broncos. And as always, these crossover shows, the Locked On Chiefs side of things, you're going to get Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark, both hosts over there at Locked On Chiefs as we preview what I think we all agree is maybe the biggest matchup right now in the NFL this week. This should have been primetime game over the Dallas Cowboys and Las Vegas Raiders, but that's a conversation for another day. We'll go through, obviously, the biggest storylines for each team, the banged-up Broncos, the Chiefs coming off of the bye week, and we'll also go through some of the key matchups that will define the outcome of Sunday's game and what each team needs to do in order to come away with a victory. You'll get that all on today's Crossover Thursday, brought to you by friends over there at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 bet. Gentlemen, obviously great to see you. It's our first time so far this season of meeting up with one another. Unfortunately for the Broncos, the Chiefs are coming off of the bye week. What is the biggest storyline here with the Kansas City Chiefs this week, coming off of a bye after having a chance to kind of reset a little bit, sitting at 5-4?
The biggest story is 7+1 and whether he'll be available or not. Josh Simmons has had a really, really strange season. Maybe the weirdest season that I've seen ever since covering this team, was going on like 15 years at this point. Was lights out. Didn't even know if he would start the season, right? Because of a significant injury he had in college. First round draft pick. You want to take it easy. You want to protect the property, right? He gets off to such a good start that it's really just never looking back. And then all of a sudden is not available at one point and missed weeks and weeks. He actually came back in the day as they went to the bye week. And so he's been in the building, working on film, working on stamina, et cetera, et cetera. The question is, after getting out to practice today, is he ready to jump right back into the mix? That's question number one.
Chris, how do you think that maybe plays out a little bit here, considering obviously the Broncos pass rush, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper? What has the Chiefs' solution been with his absence there on the offensive line?
Well, I think when you look at this, it's been a situation where the Chiefs have just plugged and played with Jalen Moore. And he's played well enough that I think you feel good about him being a guy that can step in and start. But this is not a lineup. This is not a defensive line that you want to have your backup left tackle in. And this is a lineup where you want to have everybody available that you possibly can on the offensive line, and it starts with Josh Simmons. But let's not forget, I mean, Juwan Taylor went out and was injured last in the Buffalo Bills game. Kingsley Suamataia got injured as well. Trey Smith's been dealing with a back issue. I would hope that all of them are ready to go and ready to play, but it's got to be a next man up mentality. This is the defensive line that you absolutely do not want to be seeing right now if you have those questions along the offensive line, though.
It seems like, for both of these teams, banged up all across the board. I know for the Broncos coming into this week, Denver's dealing with a wide variety of injuries where, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're trying to figure out what's going to happen this week. There's going to be no Patrick Surtain II, more than likely, in this game here. Unlikely that we see J.K. Dobbins, though we still have 2 days of practice remaining to see if he comes back. But he suffered a foot injury in Thursday night's win last week against the Raiders, got hip drop tackled, and we didn't see him during Wednesday's practice. And there's kind of this pointed illusion that R.J. Harvey, the rookie running back that they drafted in the second round, is going to get a little bit more run here. That's something that I think we're going to probably have to keep our eyes on here, where Denver is probably going to be without PS2 and also J.K. Dobbins, who's the fifth leading rusher right now in the NFL, has been such an accelerator and energizer bunny, I'd say, for Denver's offense.
It certainly appears from this side. From the outside looking in, I am not here to slight Pat Surtain in any way, but given the state of both sides of the ball in Denver, it feels like Dobbins could be the bigger loss for this game against a Chiefs team that has to come in and put up points, and you got to try to keep up. Do you read it that way, or am I missing something?
I mean, I think it's a fair point. Denver's been managing these last two games without him. I think it's different. When Pat's on the field, you're essentially saying, hey, we're playing pretty much 10v10. We know that wherever Pat is, he's going to erase that side of the field. He's going to erase that player from the equation. And then now it's kind of open a little bit because now you've got second-year cornerback Chris Abrams-Drain stepping in opposite of Riley Moss. You've got a rookie in Jahdae Barron who's getting some reps on the outside, playing a lot in the dime alongside Jaquan McMillan, who's playing primarily the nickel. And right now I look at this Chiefs offense that I feel like, we were having the conversation in the offseason about last year they didn't have a lot of weapons. This year, it seems like they have tons of weapons. You got Hollywood Brown. You got Juju Smith-Schuster. You just got Rashee Rice back. And obviously, Sean Payton pinpointed that they've been very good since he's returned into the mix. That's one thing he highlighted to us throughout the week here at practice. And you also have Tyquan Thornton as well, who's also, a guy who can make plays for you. I just think that right now, I think the Chiefs' offensive weapons, and of course you have Travis Kelce. He ain't who he used to be, but he's still the threat at any point on third down in the red zone, or if you need a big-time play, he's going to find a way to pick it up. He and Mahomes have that backyard football connection, so this is a big challenge. My question to kind of counter is a little bit, I know Isaiah Pacheco going into the bye week was banged up, didn't play against the Buffalo Bills. He was a DNP during Wednesday's practice this week. Do you anticipate that Pacheco will be back into the mix for the Chiefs here on Sunday?
Well, you didn't mention Xavier Worthy, who I think is also another guy that the Chiefs is going to really affect this offense. But I don't expect Pacheco back. It doesn't look like he's going to be ready to go. And at this point, it's going to be probably Kareem Hunt, and you're going to see Brashard Smith. My question becomes, who's their third running back, and do they actually put him onto the field? Because Clyde Edwards-Helaire was that guy against the Buffalo Bills. If they go that direction again, I will not understand it. I think it should be Elijah Mitchell, but we'll see which direction they go. I would not expect Pacheco. I think it is a loss for this Chiefs team. But the thing I would counter you on, and while I completely agree with you, Travis Kelce isn't what he once was, you put all the pieces around him that he has around him, he doesn't have to be what he once was. He can be 85% of what he once was and still be okay because he's got other guys taking coverages elsewhere.
Meanwhile, the Broncos have Mercedes Lewis back into the mix here, oldest tight end in obviously NFL history, and I'm playing in the regular season.
Is that confirmed 40 years old?
41.
Is he on the active roster or is he on the practice squad?
Practice squad, but they've elevated him the last 2 weeks. I'm sure they'll probably elevate him here this week, though they did just add Lil Jordan Humphrey back into the mix here, stealing him away from the New York Giants, which, you go from playing from, avoiding Russell Wilson. Now they're going to start Jameis Winston this week. Back to Denver, where the playbook, Sean Payton. So just another added option there, for Denver. I just think this is a big game here. Look for the Broncos. It's not necessarily, they're not coming off of a bye. You get a mini bye after you play on Thursday Night Football, but it's not enough to really kind of reset. Players kind of took after Thursday, got away for a couple of days, came back on Monday because the offense has been struggling. That's one of the biggest storylines here with this Broncos team that I said is going to be a problem if that offense shows up on Sunday against Kansas City, because I see Kansas City, even with Denver's defense being as good as they are, they're going to get stops. They're going to get after Mahomes here and there, but you can't be on the field the entire game against Kansas City here, because I'll go back to a few weeks when they played the Washington Commanders. I thought that the Chiefs offense did a terrific job of controlling the time of possession, where they had multiple 10-play drives. One was like a 102-yard drive that they had because of penalties. You took 7 or 8 minutes off the clock and you scored every time. It's hard to beat. And the defense for Denver simply can't be on the field as much as they have been as of late. That's why they're going to need the offense to complement them a little bit better.
I certainly agree with you. And it takes a group. This is AFC West competition, right? Not one side of the ball is going to get it done. And I just hope we don't come down to another last-second ball game. I'm a little tired of them. I think the Broncos are probably enjoying it, right? The fortunes have flipped from 25 to 24.
Yeah. That's been crazy, too, just seeing the difference. Last year, KC was winning all these one-score games, finding ways to win. This year, Denver's finding ways to win. Kansas City seems to be on the other side of it. It's like this weird balancing act here. And I think this is a big game for Denver because you have a chance to go to 9-2, which you haven't been in a long time. But you also have a chance to do that against Kansas City. And you push them down a little bit in the AFC. It would make things very, very interesting for the division, because I do think that Kansas City is in a position they could go on a run here over the next handful of weeks. Look, they got 2 tough matchups, Denver, the Indianapolis Colts, and then I feel like, yes, you got one more matchup with the Chargers. I feel like after that, though, the schedule is wide open for Kansas City to kind of be right where they want to be, essentially, down the stretch for the postseason. So that's something that concerns me. And look, this is a big game for both sides here. And one thing we're going to do here on today's crossover episode, we're going to go through some of the key matchups we think will define the outcome of Sunday's game. You get all that here on today's Locked On Broncos, Locked On Chiefs, Crossover Thursday. Today's Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends over there at Supply House. And when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House today. Order today and see parts tomorrow on your doorstep. It's over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side cover. The part finder tools and the 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process even smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at Prize Picks. You and I, we make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action than right now. And if you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere that Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. They have a new stacks feature, which is a complete game changer because you can now pick more on Steph Curry's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup during the NBA season. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Continuing on here, Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. We're so grateful for all of you, all the everydayers out there in Broncos country, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for making us your first listen, however you choose to do so, and making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the game here. Gentlemen, let's get into some of the key matchups here that are going to define the outcome of this game. I want to start off with you guys. What's a matchup from the Kansas City perspective that both of you guys kind of have your eye on here as it pertains to matching up with the Broncos here in the Mile High City?
Okay, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at just Rashee Rice against anybody that he's going to be going up against. I don't know if it's going to be Riley Moss or who they're going to have, but I will say the thing that I've noticed when watching the Broncos is Riley Moss, when he's been thrown at, has been a guy that's gotten a lot of penalties. That could cause some issues for the Broncos. But I'm just going to be curious to see what Rashee Rice is able to do against this Broncos defense, because it is a very good defense. But like you said, without Pat Surtain, it changes a little bit. And with all the different weapons that Kansas City has and them coming off a bye, I have to feel like they're going to have a great game plan for this Denver defense.
Well, I am tempted to cheat and take a position group, but I will boil it down because it comes down to protecting the quarterback for both of these teams. And so facing a group of pass rushers that the Broncos have is a tall tale. It is difficult, especially with Juwan Taylor coming off of an injury and a second injury that it's been nagging on him since the offseason. Then the whole drama with Joshua Simmons. You have Jalen Moore, but he can only play on one side of the ball, and we don't know if either of the other tackles are ready to go. Yet you have to face Bonito and Cooper. And that's a problem. But that's not the biggest one in my appointment. As I look at this game, Kingsley Suamonte has been the left guard for about half a minute, and he's really, really progressed. And I'm very happy for him. I just don't know that he's ready for Zach on. I think that's going to be the matchup because it's so much closer to the quarterback's first step. That's the one that I'm concerned about in the pass rush, because I think everything else that the Broncos need to do can rotate off of that particular one-on-one.
Yeah, no, and I think my matchup kind of plays into that because I am going with Denver's pass rush against Mahomes. Look, I think Denver's going to have to find a way to be better on third down. They're right now, defensively, they're in a great spot. They're the #1 third down defense in the NFL, but anytime you play Patrick Mahomes, as we even saw last year, there were times in that first matchup at Arrowhead where, it was a thrilling game for all of us there. Mahomes escaped a couple of Nick Bonito sacks, was able to throw the ball away or obviously evade and find Samaje Perine last year on a pickup. Or we know on third down, let's say it's 3rd and 15. We know that Kansas City has the guys to run the defensive backs off, and then Mahomes will use his legs and try to pick it up. We've seen that. That's historic Pat Mahomes. The rush lanes and the integrity this week are going to be so big here for the Broncos defense. I'm going with, obviously, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper. Ryan, I'm glad you brought up Zach Allen, because this defensive line, I mean, they have been on a historic pace so far this season. Right now, they're on pace to break the record set by, obviously, the 1984 Chicago Bears, which was 72 sacks in the season. Coming into this game, they're at 46 sacks. They're coming off of a 6-sack game against Geno Smith and that Las Vegas Raiders team. Mahomes is hard to bring down, but I think Denver will be able to get home a few times. So you mentioned those guys on the outside. You mentioned Zach Allen. When Zach is getting double teamed, now you get a one-on-one with John Franklin Myers, who's having a terrific year, to the point the Broncos may not be able to pay him, and he may go to free agency next year and get a big-time deal somewhere else because of what he's been able to do. Hopefully not Kansas City. Yes, that's the one thing we're going to say there. But I would say that the trenches, I really think for this game, are going to define it. The Broncos' offensive line has been pretty good so far with dealing with the loss of Ben Powers at left guard. Alex Palczewski's filled in relatively nicely. Bo Nix is a hard quarterback to sack. But the one thing I always go to, Nick Bolton, Steve Spagnuolo, third down, that A-gap blitz, or sometimes they'll blitz the nickel and the corner, depending if it's the short side of the field. I worry about those disguised looks this week here for Denver from a protection standpoint.
It's going to be, you bring up some great points. So you start looking at the Chiefs defensive line against the Denver Broncos. What is Chris Jones going to be doing this week after not looking great the past couple of weeks that he's been playing? And there's been questions about his effort and questions about how well he's been playing in the season in general. You're paying him a ton of money and he hasn't been producing. This is a game where he needs to step up and he needs to produce. And you know, you're looking at the Chiefs defensive line, and outside of Chris Jones, they don't really have anything else. And then you get into practice today and you see George Karlaftis practiced, but was on the injury report with an injury we didn't even know about. Now, it's a thumb. I would imagine that he'll be playing. I don't think that there's any question that he'll play this game, but you still don't want to see them having injuries going into this one.
Yeah, no, that's a big one as well. And I'm curious as well how the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo were going to game plan against Courtland Sutton. I mean, last year it was Trent McDuffie. Trent's obviously their top cornerback. He follows everybody. But what we've been seeing opposing defenses do so far this season, they're bracketing Courtland. They're playing press coverage on the outside. They're jamming him and allowing that corner to play underneath while they have a safety climbing up inside and over the top there. So defenses have really tried to take away Courtland Sutton as Bo Nix's go-to guy, and that's led to Troy Franklin being the guy who's received the most targets so far offensively this season. Denver will get Marvin Mims back in this game, but from a defensive perspective on Kansas City side against Denver's offense, that's one matchup that I think if Courtland Sutton can come out and make some big catches against McDuffie, which he did last season, it could change the momentum of this game here for Denver offensively, and it could get them in the groove that they've certainly been missing.
I will caution you, because one of the disguises might be to think like that, because I don't think Steve Spagnuolo is going to really try to set Trent McDuffie up for success that way again. I think he's a little bit more comfortable, shall we say, with the matchup with McDuffie on Franklin, who, as you said, has been getting those targets, and I think it's the A-B scenario, right? This season, Jalen Watson and the rookie Noah Williams have provided that physical kind of contact, play through the route, the thing that Steve Spagnuolo is looking for. I think you might see a change of personnel on Courtland in order to try and not create that same matchup that did work out so well for Denver last time. I think it all depends on the way the rookie plays, to tell you the truth. We might see a rotation, but it is definitely going to be job number one to take away Courtland Sutton.
Chris, what do you think from an offensive perspective for Kansas City against Denver's defense that's obviously not Rashee Rice related at this point? I don't think Denver is, like, if Pat was playing, I think that they would travel Pat probably with Rashee Rice. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think that they're going to just keep the corners on whatever side that they're at, and they're going to keep them there and not move them around, because I don't feel like you can get away with that without Pat against this Chiefs team with all the personnel that they certainly have.
I would agree with that. I think that when you look at this and you look at how it's going, Hollywood Brown hasn't played a very big role in this offense. I wonder if that is going to be something that they're going to try to focus on, try to get him more involved so they can get, more be a little bit more effective. They kind of weren't very effective against the Buffalo Bills, and that really made that game a struggle to score points. You cannot do that in this game against the Denver Broncos. You have to put points on the board. And regardless of how much the Denver Broncos offense has struggled, I still feel like going into this game, you're going to get a Super Bowl type maybe not a Super Bowl type atmosphere, but a playoff type atmosphere from this team, from the Broncos and from the Chiefs. And you're going to be looking at this as like, this is one of the biggest games of the year for both teams, because it really is. If Denver wins this game, I'm not going to say they put away Kansas City from having a chance at the division, but it's really close. And if Kansas City wins, they hold all the cards. As you said earlier, I mean, their schedule's a little bit easier. They play the Broncos again. They play the Chargers again. They could conceivably get to a point where they're tied with the Broncos, and if they've got 2 wins against them, they'll be ahead of the Broncos. And so you look at how this is playing out. It's in Kansas City's hands, but it's a question of, can they take advantage of it?
Yeah, so you're telling me this is the biggest game of the year so far for both teams? I think we'll all take that there. Funny, interesting note, you brought up Hollywood Brown. What is his injury? The Hollywood Brown injury? I saw it on the injury report there. I was like, they're like, Marquise Brown, injury, Hollywood Brown. I was like, all right, I don't know if that's like bruised
sprained hair follicle, we're pretty sure at this point.
Something like that. But this should be an exciting matchup. Obviously, there's going to be a handful of matchups that will determine the outcome of this game. And we're going to go through what each team needs to do on Sunday in order to come away with a victory. You're going to get all that here on today's Locked On Broncos, Locked On Chiefs, Crossover Thursday. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and as the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. Life doesn't come with a playbook or a manual that helps us deal with some of the things that come out of the left field. But this season, it's so important to reach out and to check in with friends, with family, and even yourself. Just like checking on a teammate or reconnecting with someone that you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits. Reaching out for therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are, from the comfort of your own home. And BetterHelp, they match you with a therapist who fits your needs, and you can switch anytime if you feel like it's not the right match for you. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. Listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Because taking that step towards support might leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Check it out today at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. The stage is set for Sunday's AFC West matchup here between the Denver Broncos and Kansas City Chiefs. We've talked about the biggest storylines. We've talked about the key matchups. But what is it that each team must do on Sunday if they're going to leave this game? If the Broncos are going to go to 9-2, or if the Chiefs are going to prove to 6-4, what is it that they have to do? Cody Roark of Locked On Broncos joined alongside Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark of Locked On Chiefs here. Gentlemen, I'm going to start off with you. If the Kansas City Chiefs are going to kind of get out of this slump and improve to 6-4, so to speak, what is it that they have to do? Chris, we'll start with you on defense. And then Ryan, if you could give us the keys here on offense, what is it that Kansas City has to do in order to come away with a victory on Sunday?
I'd say there's 2 things, maybe 3 that they need to do. Pressure Bo Nix is probably number 1. Create a turnover would be another. And then it's just, shut down the running game. If you're not going to be going up against J.K. Dobbins, which it sounds like you're probably not going to, take that away from them. Make it to where they have to be one-dimensional and they have to try to pass, because your pass defense has been the strength of this defense this season. And I think that's the position that they would want to be in.
On the offensive side, it's pretty straightforward. I hate to be the throwback guy, but I'm the throwback guy. Run the ball. Control the time of possession. Run at them, especially attack the middle of the defense without Singleton there. Try to get the pass rushers to have to slow down by attacking them physically in the run game. It's job number 1. Then you come back, and really, this is on Andy Reid more than it is the team. But you have to lash your foot to the accelerator and keep it on the floor the entire time. 4 comebacks in the fourth quarter for Bo Nix this season. You can't let it be within 10 points by the time that fourth period starts. So you have to build that lead. You have to take that lead, and you got to keep mashing that accelerator. And the last thing is protect the ball. You don't give it away. You can't blame anybody but yourself. And I think that this is a team that is now ready after the bye. When I feel like for the first time in 3 or 4 seasons, they really needed it. I think they're ready to buckle down and protect themselves a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I think those are great keys too, and certainly some challenges that will, I think, present some obstacles here for the Broncos offensively, defensively, that they're going to have to overcome and not let the Chiefs get hot with. I think for the Broncos, Ryan, I'm going to use something that you said here. The Broncos this week, they have to find a way to run the football. Look, statistically, they're a top 5 rushing offense right now in the NFL, but the run pass balance has been so inconsistent. I mean, for the last 2 weeks, for example, the Broncos, they ran the ball 6 times total in the first half against the Texans, 6 times total against the Raiders, while they had Bo Nix throwing 15 plus times. And look, when you're not completing passes and you're going through a little bit of a slump that Bo Nix certainly has been in the last couple of games, you can't get into that same situation here against a Steve Spagnuolo defense, because he's going to send pressure in the middle. He's going to send it off the edge. He's going to send it from the corner position. He's going to blitz the safety from time to time. He's going to try to get the Broncos into some long field situations. Penalties have killed this Broncos offense this season. They've backed them up. They've got 83 penalties on the year as a team, 42 of them on the offense. And I talked to a few Broncos players this week, and I asked them, what's been going on with the struggles offensively? And he said, honestly, we're putting ourselves behind the sticks far too often. Well, when that makes it easier for the defense. If it's 3rd and 15, all of a sudden your defense is like, hey, we're going to just sit at the sticks. We're going to play back. We want you to throw it short. We're going to rally and tackle and then get off the field. The Broncos had 8 3-and-outs last week against the Raiders on their first 12 drives. That's not good. You can't make that mistake against Kansas City. You take that pressure off of Bo Nix by running the football. Yes, probably no J.K. Dobbins in this game, but R.J. Harvey, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Bidet, find a way to use the run game, because it is one of the bigger strengths of this team than Sean Payton gives it credit for. Sometimes he goes away from the run. Defensively, you're going to have to get after Patrick Mahomes a little bit, specifically get off the field on 3rd down, get stops in the red zone. You're going to get one of the best red zone offenses in the NFL right now with Kansas City against the number 1 red zone defense in the NFL. This is pay-per-view TV. This is appointment watching here this week. And if the Broncos can find a way to get after Mahomes a few times and the offense can find a way to put up points, I think Denver can control the pace here at Empower Field at Mile High. But this is going to be a game I think is going to go down to the wire. Gents, how do you think this is going to go? You got any bold predictions for Sunday's game?
I don't have a bold prediction, but I will say this. If you are going to go with get off the field on 3rd down, you better make sure it's not going to be a 4th and short. Andy Reid and the Chiefs have been going for it on 4th down so much more this year than they have in past years. And this is a game where they cannot afford to not be aggressive. So you have to make it, a situation where it's 4th and 4 or more if they're not past the 40-yard line or the Denver 40-yard line. So to me, I think that's the big thing. I think the one big bold prediction I will make is that the Chiefs are going to go for a 4th down, maybe 2 on their own side of the 50, just because that's who they've become this season.
Okay. I mean, yeah, Denver's going to have to be on their P's and Q's. I mean, the Raiders took that same approach on Thursday Night Football, went for it several times on 4th down. And luckily, Talanoa Hufanga got a sack on Geno Smith on one of those 4th and 7 looks there. The way that Vance Joseph has been disguising his coverages and his blitz looks have been great. It's hard for defenses to really scheme against. You can't diagnose it pre-snap, but you can hope that you can adjust on the fly. So I'm excited. This is going to be one, I think, where everyone's going to let everything loose here. Ryan, any closing thoughts on the Chiefs side of things?
Yeah, I will tell you this. One of the most intriguing matchups for me, I think, could be the thing that turns the tide on this. And it's not about Rashee Rice. I understand that he is the premier and you got to take him away. But I think this team looked at a roster, and I think Barron's in Denver partially to try to understand what Xavier Worthy is going to do. I think Xavier still has the advantage. I think they get it to him, and he has a very big day against the Denver defense.
Well, we'll see. Obviously, you don't want that to happen. If you're a Broncos fan, you don't want anyone getting deep downfield. There's a propensity for teams to take some shots downfield. They're going to take some chances, especially with PS2 not being in the mix. But it's also an opportunity for your playmakers to go out there and obviously get some picks. Look, Kansas City's done a great job this year of not turning the football over in terms of fumbles. Mahomes has thrown a few picks, but they're one of the teams that are top ranked right now in the NFL and not turning the football over. Denver has to find a way to change that because they haven't forced a lot of takeaways, essentially. Dondre Tillman, outside linebacker, leads the team in interceptions so far this season. So you would think that, with the guys you have in the secondary, those guys would have picks. Those have not come yet here outside of Brandon Jones getting an interception. Talanoa Hufanga's come close. But I think one of the bigger keys this week is Denver doing that. I think Dre Greenlaw, who's been healthy now and is ready to rock and roll, I think he's going to have a big game. He might have a sack here on Mahomes, could even have an interception in this game. That'll be my bold prediction here. But Gentlemen, we're all excited for Sunday's game. It is the biggest game of the week. This should have been flexed to some primetime action so everybody in the world could see it here. But stay tuned to Locked On Chiefs, Locked On Broncos every step of the way here as we continue to break it down. Plus, you'll get post-game coverage and more following those games. Thanks for rocking with us here on Crossover Thursday and making the Locked On Podcast Network now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. We appreciate you so much. Gentlemen, good luck, and we'll see you all on Sunday.